Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach.
Mileage Shane. I am Brandon's co-host and producer for this podcast.
So last week we took a week off. Holly had a trip to Colorado. I was coming off of New York and stuff. It's been a little bit busy. So, we're going to pick back up here with the idea of permission to be lost or permission to stop pretending. And it's just this ability to sit in the gap. There's usually this split, when we start to wake up and do this type of work where we feel called in a certain direction, but then we've built our life on these other ideas. It's kind of welcoming that journey of deviating from that track and trying to understand what there is for you. And there generally is this gap. I'm not really sure what to do because my mind's used to doing these things, but if I'm trying to get to a new destination, I do need new habits, behaviors, beliefs, all those things. But just being okay with that space, being okay with not knowing. So we're going to go deeper into those ideas. But first, Holly, is there anything you'd like to share about your Colorado trip? I know it's a very special place to you. You tend to go back there quite often. It's certainly stunning. And, we had a wonderful time last year when I came with you guys.
We do go back to the Boulder area about once a year. It's a super cool place to hang out. That episode we recorded in the Rocky Mountain National Park last year actually has had a bit of a resurgence. If anybody wanted to go back and
Oh,
re-listen to it, it
very cool.
recently got like a bunch of downloads, so that's kind of cool. It's a cool place. We love the mountains out there and have gone back, I think, every year now for this would be the 6th year.
Wow.
Yeah. So a few years we went to race Boulder 70.3, but then the last few years we've just gone to visit. Our friend Logan lives out there, so good excuse to go out there. This year, I think I've always thought of it. This year's a little different. I've always thought of it as a place that was sort of an escape from real life. Just like the atmosphere in Boulder, the kind of culture that they have there, things like that, always felt like a bit of a chance to get away. And this time being there, now, to be fair, there was some stuff that happened while we were there that we couldn't have predicted. My husband was in a bike accident and broke his collarbone. That's a whole different story. But even aside from that, like just being there didn't have that same escape feeling to me. It felt a little more like I had just picked up and started living my life for a period of time someplace else rather than feeling super different or very vacation-y. And because it's like a place that we love to go, we did a lot of the same things we always do, revisited the same restaurants and things like that. So there wasn't like a, crazy, like new experience outside of the UC Highlands Hospital. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think a big part of this work, it's being more intentional and conscious about how you live your life, and it's based on paying attention to how you feel and working to reconcile that. A lot of it is, you bring your nervous system with you everywhere as you resolve past issues, as you evolve your mindset. Things just tend to feel different. It's a main idea that, ideally we want to build a life we don't have to escape from. It's like we can usually pin like, oh, if I go here, like I can expect that to pull me out of whatever I'm currently living. The more peace I create within myself, the more I feel settled, the more I feel optimistic about the direction I'm heading regardless. We stop like kind of pinning so much on a certain location or idea or even a relationship. We start to see this as just kind of, oh, I bring me with me everywhere. And it starts to feel pretty similar. Not that you don't get new dynamics and new experiences, but it's generally, especially when you have places that you go to pretty regularly. For me, that's New York, Chicago, Miami, things like that. I've been plenty of times, but it just starts to become like more a matter of fact of like, I just feel like, this is fresh and new in new ways, but it's also like, it's not also a big deal to me either, I guess. It's kind of just being in sync with it. That's really, those are signs of more stable emotions generally, is when we don't feel like we need to like run from things as much. We don't need to escape our life. It's more of like, I'm good no matter what, but it's good to go in these new places and get these experiences, but I'm not using it as that escape anymore. And so these are all like subtle shifts, subtle changes that tend to happen. But yeah, it's just the acceptance and beauty of all of life at some point where, we stop getting these big emotional spikes, but it's just kind of this calmer contentment with things. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that definitely resonates. And we talk about Boulder as a place we would live too. So I think while we were there, there was a little bit of, well, what that I don't know if that played into it, right? Of like, well, what would it look like?
Well, and
So
that's the thing. It's these like, okay, this is a desire you've held, this in California.
yep.
And those are both places you visit pretty regularly, but it starts to feel like, oh, when it doesn't feel like such a big gap, like that means like I'm like closer to those types of ideas, and this happened to me last time I was in New York, which was probably 2, 3 weeks ago. I don't know. But so the last podcast or a couple podcasts ago, I talked about this gentleman I met at a bar that was like telling me about every day's your birthday, right? So we actually like had the opportunity to meet up with him again, and then he told me and Lauren, he's like, yeah, I think you guys are going to move to New York. Like that was the first thing he said to us. Is you start to align with the energy, and then it starts to feel like natural. um, where it's not this huge gap where this is like an idealistic life that I could live one day. It starts to feel like more like it's possible, like the energy starting to align where it feels like more matter of fact. That's when we're really in tune. We can start to feel those differences of like, oh, like this doesn't like feel impossible anymore. It feels like it could be something I could do if I wanted to. And that's a pretty cool indicator of growth as well.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
as we get into this, so do you have a question for this week?
I do. I do have a question. So this is more around the somatic work that you do. Hopefully folks that are listening to this are familiar, but if you happen to be new here and you're not familiar, highly recommend that you go check out Brandon's Instagram. He recently posted a post about what it's like to work with him. That would be a great thing to reference if you're curious. But so this week's question is, if you are doing the somatic work and there's something reoccurring from a pain perspective, but you have identified the story there, or you think you have, does that mean it's just pain or you're just getting older? Or does that mean there's something there you're not ready to see yet?
This is a tough one. I think it can be, especially if you stick with something for quite a while and have done a lot of processing around it. It could be like, okay, well, like what's left? But I think there is just generally the wear and tear of life and aging and things like that. I think that's certainly can be the case. But it's always when I'm focused on this thing and it's frustrating to me, there's even if it is we've worked through a lot of the story, usually there's still some wisdom that comes out of it. I think pain is your teacher regardless of whether it's kind of this fresh new idea I'm digging into or something I've like really worked on, because there's like so many angles to these things where it really is just this ongoing path of self-discovery, and the way we do that is we pay attention to my relationship to things. And so it's like if something's bothering me, yeah, like it's that challenges me to get to this place of acceptance with it. And that could be even getting to the place of acceptance with the idea of aging. A lot of people have loaded beliefs around that of decline and what that means for them. I encourage like everybody to spend some time examining the idea of aging. Death is like a really, really big one that, I think it really serves people to spend some time and kind of clean up their mindset about it, because, you want to at least have this neutral or optimistic outlook on things that really serves you. That can, but as soon as I go into this idea of aging, if it automatically makes me feel bad and I have all these big negative beliefs around it, that's not going to serve me well, right? So I think it's a mixture of things. It could just be like, okay, like this is just how my body is now, and there's all these peptides and like all these things nowadays of like trying to escape aging, right? But I think there's always like pieces of the puzzle you could work to try and make things feel better. But, sometimes it is just the acceptance of like, okay, this is at this point now. And so maybe I do just need to come to peace with that. I think that's a learning process in itself as well. There's so many layers and levels to that idea. But, generally it is just going deeper and deeper into things to get that understanding. Something could be uncomfortable, but if I'm removing the judgment from it, it's not going to bother me as much. So it's just these are very difficult things to distinguish, especially like if you've been at something for a long time. I remember, forever my hip would be locked up. And so I just kept working on that. And over time, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, but it's still like unravels things. I still like learn from it, but it's not like this thing I'm like trying to fix anymore. It's more of, okay, yeah, it would be nice if it like was looser or felt better, but it's not, this is a project and I need to like figure it out and I need to work every angle anymore. It just kind of unnaturally unwinds for me now. So about shifting and softening your relationship to things. And, with being an athlete, gearing up for these battles, these races, that's what drives you to put an extra emphasis on like I need to get this as to at least this point to perform. If you're not doing those things, it's a little bit more lax where you're just like, yeah, this isn't the greatest, but it also doesn't really affect me that much. So it just kind of all depends on what you're trying to do too. But yeah, I think getting to the place of acceptance with aging, or okay, yeah, if this is something I want to work on, then I start working the puzzle. Is there different therapies, modalities, things like that that can help open it up a little bit more? Is there still some emotions I'm carrying in there? Because a lot of this stuff is pretty deep rooted. When we go back all the way through childhood, there might be little pieces for you, but it's nothing that the big stuff comes from the initial stuff. When you start to go into the body and unwind it, you start to feel a major difference. But the further along on the path you get, it starts to be these like tiny little adjustments where, you might feel slightly better, but it's not going to be as big of a shift as in the beginning. So it's more in that refinement phase.
So, ready to get into permission to be lost?
Yeah, let's get lost.
This idea is like something I think I sort of romanticize actually. Right? There's like a big part of me that like sort of loves the idea of like a nomad lifestyle. And in addition to Colorado and California, and this totally fits into both vibes, but like Aaron and I often talk about like selling everything and getting like a camper van and like
Mhm.
going to live that life for a while. It is a very regular conversation in our house. But yeah, so there is a piece of this I think I kind of romanticize a little bit.
Yeah, it's just mostly about getting to that point of what this life brings. I've been going through the motions. I know what this identity brings, and I want something different. I'm kind of tired of it. It's predictable, those types of things. This ability to shake things up, there's just like so much in there for us, because a lot of us build our life initially on some sort of performance mindset, or I need to be a certain person in order to receive love and validation and to be respected and all those things. And a lot of that's built on societal norms. And we've talked about many times the ability to build confidence and self-esteem is like rooted in this idea of be, being willing to risk social injury. And that means that caring less about what other people think. Okay. So I'm willing to go against the grain. I'm willing to be lost and try and like figure it out because I just can't do this anymore. In that place, there's, commonly we see like the idea of like imposter syndrome come up with people where they've conformed to a life, they've adopted that performance mindset, and they're like disconnected from who they are. And so they always kind of feel like a fraud. Okay. And even it doesn't matter how good they are at something, it's not as like clean and as authentic as it should be. That kind of pushes against these ideas of like, well, like where have I betrayed myself? Where have I left myself behind? And we can't hit that point where it's just like, well, I feel called so much more in that direction to really like get those parts back of me than to just kind of maintain the status quo. The status quo, it's heavily reinforced. It's validated by society. A lot of families, like all that stuff, is very well supported. A lot of that is built on, varying degrees of self-betrayal of me trying to just align with things, then rather than me really connect with myself and figure things out from that place. And me personally, I knew very early on, like I didn't want to align with all those ideas. And so I was lost for many years. I was okay with that though. It was very difficult and hard, but It was more of like I wanted to figure it out on my own. And, because I'm very stubborn, I really hate to be told what to do. And so that kind of fueled that of, and I'm willing to like listen to people I respect, but if I don't fully respect somebody, there's also that, uh, okay, well, like I'm going to go figure this out. And, it's those mixtures of, okay, like, can can I suppress this anymore? Can I shut it down anymore? Or do I just have to take this journey and just try and figure it out? And with that, we're making the statement of like, I don't know, right? I don't know. I just know I can't do this anymore. And so I'm going to go get lost for a little bit and go find myself. And that finding myself is my relationship to things. It's like, how do I relate to family? How do I relate to career? How do I relate to partnership or relationship and those types of things? And so it's getting down to the roots of those, of getting, what do I really believe about this stuff? We all have this programming stacked on top of things. And it's getting to that place of, is that true for me or not? And so we have these aspects of, the masculine and feminine energies. So masculine is building and feminine is actually chaos and destruction. When we remodel ourselves, we actually need to like destroy these aspects of ourselves, and that's the feminine side, and that's the deeper emotional reflection piece. We go into that of like, because that's how we remold things. You keep stripping things down to like figure out what's actually like true for you. Through that process of me stripping things down, it's like my mind's always wanting to jump back to the old ways. It's always like, oh, this is what I normally do here. But as it starts to fall away, now it's like I don't know what to do anymore, right? Because my mind and my nervous system's reorganizing, where it's like what used to be obvious to me, now I'm like questioning it. And so it creates this hesitancy. It creates this lack of clarity about like, what am I even moving into? It's a very uncomfortable phase. So we're stripping the ego away. We have to be able to sit in the gap with that. We have to be able to sit with discomfort. We have to get to the bottom of what's really true for me. And if we don't like that feeling, we tend to just want to jump back to the old thing. But the thing is, once you see the truth, once you see a deeper truth than what you're operating from, you can't go back. Okay. So that's the trick is I want to be, oh, it was like easier this way. But now that I know what I know, like I can't go back into that level of ignorance. Okay. I can't just do that because now it's going to feel 10 times worse. So when we start to create deeper awarenesses, it is a very uncomfortable process, but it is like it's stripping away what's false. It's stripping away what's not actually you. Through each thing we strip away, we feel better, but it doesn't necessarily like give us this clear path yet until we go deep enough to get that clarity. It's something we have to stick with, and it's something we have to wrestle. It's starting to be okay with, I do have to pay less attention to what other people think because they're generally just going to be reinforcing the old me. They're just going to be reinforcing societal norms and the things that I've always done. You'll see this with a lot of people. You could have like changed drastically. And, if you haven't seen somebody in quite a while, maybe 5 years or so, this happens with like college friends and high school friends, things like that, of like when you go see them, like they're relating to like the old you. Okay. You might have moved way down the road, but it's like they're trying to connect to this old version of you. But when they're trying to do that, that feels uncomfortable because it's like, oh, I'm not being seen for who I am now. Okay. A lot of parents do this with their kids as well. So as the kids become adults, the parents always try to hold that image of the child rather than the adult version. And so it creates this gap, and that makes people, creates a lot of irritations and stuff because we're not feeling seen for who we are. We're not feeling respected at that level. And so that's all part of it is being okay with being misunderstood too. Not everybody's in sync with who I am now, and that's okay. A lot of their judgments and ideas are going to be based on the old role I used to play. So getting lost is this idea of like, I'm trying to connect to me, and I really want to, I value that over everything else. Okay. I value that over other people's opinions. I'm willing to risk this social injury to get deeper connected to myself, which is what's going to build that authentic confidence that we generally talk about, and that self-esteem to really pursue what's true for me. And yeah, it's a difficult path, but it's also a necessary path if you really want to get connected to joy and happiness and live a very intentional life. Is you have to start to question, like, why am I doing the things I'm doing? Why do I feel terrible when I do these things? It's because you're generally betraying yourself on some level. And so we want to go in and strip that stuff out so that you can align with what's true for you. Because once we catch that rhythm, it generally has a pretty nice flow to it. But then, you're living this life that you can be proud of. You're living this life that you're aligned with. And then in that place, we really need less from other people. We need less validation. We learn to like love ourselves in that process. So I actually like lower my expectations of other people. So now I'm more self-sustaining, and that creates so much for me. I'm stronger in every area when I'm less dependent on needing that emotional support, and that's where I can really stay true to myself. And once again, these are all phases. Eventually, once I build that solid core, like I start to add people back in, because like I have this ability to speak up and own my energy and say no and those types of things. That happens later on, but it's that initial stage of I'm going to go figure this out, and in that process I'm going to strip away what's no longer me. And then that's whenever I build that back up, it's going to be much more aligned, much more solid, and it's going to feel pretty natural to me. It's not going to feel like I'm fighting myself.
So let's talk a little bit about the like not depending on others part of this. There's a couple of things you said that I guess I'm hoping you'll clarify, because I think on the surface it could be misinterpreted as like becoming self-centered or, you know, more like a narcissist or something like that. Somebody could totally misconstrue some of what you
Mhm.
were saying to like go in that direction. So like, oh, you do this work and you become self-obsessed
Mhm.
and you don't need people anymore. That's not exactly what you mean. So maybe talk a
Right.
little bit more about that.
It's a phase. Once it's like the reason, okay, so when I'm just operating out of the normal life, I'm giving up all these parts of myself. Okay. And so it's very natural to rebalance that out is like, okay, I need to spend more time with myself and I need to get clear on things so that I build things in alignment with me. And so that part is it's this internal focus. Like I'm trying to straighten myself out so that I can be of greater service. I can be of greater support to others, because if I'm trading parts of me in these different situations of like codependencies and things like that, um, underneath it all is there's going to be bitterness and resentment. A lot of times I'm like doing things because like I feel like I have to, even if I don't want to. And so I'm probably subconsciously holding some grudges. Like I'm subconsciously holding on to these resentments because like I'm not doing things in alignment with me. And so once we start to clean all this stuff up, you get clear on what you want, but then I'm like also operating from a cleaner place. I'm not asking other people to do things that are unfair either anymore. Okay? Because like I know what that feels like. So I'm working from this cleaner place in my relationships where it's like I'm not making other people responsible for my emotions. I understand my emotions are an inside job. I understand that's based on the story and my pain and trauma, the things that from my past that's coming up for me. And that's not somebody else's work to solve that. People can support me through it, but ultimately I'm going to have to face it if I want to come to peace with it. And so the kind of separating piece is usually we're in some sort of survival mode. We're trying to just maintain status quo. As I'm trying to shift out of survival mode, I'm trying to build myself up to be this higher version that is more self-sustaining, that is more balanced in this like giving and receiving with other people. And that's what keeps relationships clean. The self-focus is to realign after periods of me just going along with things. Okay. So it's I have to get clear on myself. And then once I'm clear on myself, now I'm in tune with what I can actually give other people and what I can help them with. And so it starts to, and I increase my capacity that way too, because I start to get in alignment with my gifts and my abilities and what I'm actually on this planet to do. And generally, we feel the best when there is some sort of service involved. It's cleaning myself up so that I can operate at a higher level. I could serve at a higher level. I could support at a higher level. I'm no longer stringing along with these negative emotions. I'm operating from this clean place in my heart, and with that place I have the wisdom on where I can help and where I can give and all those things, right? So it's this building your capacity up to be of greater assistance long term. And so many things in life, It's the short-term sacrifice for the long-term success. Okay, so I need this time period where I start to wall off to really just build myself up. And then from that place, I start opening it back up, but it's in this new balance. And that's really what we're trying to achieve there is it takes kind of you going into your cave. That's what I called it is when I did my meditation process and all that. It's just like I'm just going into my cave to like sort myself out because the way I'm doing things is just keeps depleting me. I'm not able to hold boundaries. I'm not able to stand up for myself in the way I need to, and that kind of stuff. Because there are takers out there. There's people that don't have the best intentions. There's all this mixture of things, but if I can get clear on who I am and what I'm able to offer, that's where I'm able to offer at a higher level, right? It's like even with my client list, I'm very conscious about my time. I don't take on too much where I can't give 100% each session I do. It's like I create that space to really get clear on who I am. So I'm not trying to give from this depleted place because that's not as effective if you get all of me, right? And so that's what we're trying to do is like the actions I do out of service, I want to be completely aligned with them. I don't want to be conflicted. If I'm conflicted, I have this split energy I'm giving, and that gives us mixed results. I start to, yeah, I might be able to help here, but then I might be bringing my own baggage into a situation here, and then that starts to feel weird to the other person, right? So it's about creating these containers and being very realistic about what my capacity is and what I have to offer. In that part, there is that phase of like I need the space to get really clear on me because if I'm always giving uh, from the depleted place, there's nothing left, and then I have resentment towards everybody anyway, and that doesn't work either. So we take the step back to really get that peace and realignment with ourselves, and then that's when we expand outward, but we do it in a cleaner way that we're able to sustain.
When we opened, you talked a little bit about, you know, this idea of permission to stop pretending and that connection to the getting lost. So maybe let's head in that direction.
Yeah, so the pretending piece, it's, along with the imposter syndrome and all that stuff, my actions are based on what I think people want. Okay. It's like I'm going along with things because it's easier. I'm going along with things because that's what's expected of me, whether that's fair or not. The pretending is like I'm putting on this mask. I'm putting on this face to show people, which may not be very true. I might have all these hidden resentments in the background. I might, the longer you fake it, like you really start to lose this ability to even smile, right? Because it's just like the energy is not running clean through us. So it's just like I'm forcing myself to do all these things I don't want to do. And in that place, I'm just kind of stringing things along. It's not very good for anybody, right? So pretending that's built on our insecurities. I'm supposed to like have this stuff figured out. I'm supposed to know. I'm supposed to know how to treat a person in a relationship. I'm supposed to know how to manage money. I'm supposed to know how to do this job at work. And a lot of these things we were never taught, right? We didn't have good models. We didn't have people that could really walk us through it so that we can learn it. And so a lot of these areas, there's parts of us that are stuck in the past, they're left behind. And the further along I get in life, we have this, if I'm not developed in a certain area, there's a lot of shame thrown on that, right? People judge a lot. Okay, like what's wrong with this person? Well, like why don't they know this? Like all that stuff. And so that's why we pretend is to not get the shame thrown on us. Okay, but that's where vulnerability comes in. Is like, okay, if I'm really behind developmentally in this area, I need to be able to open that up. I need to be able to admit I don't know what I'm doing, and that's me being lost. And that's the only place I can actually get help is by admitting I don't know what I'm doing. And so I have to stop pretending because that's what gives me access to being able to develop that area. And that's things when we like initially branch out, it is just like there is the judgment that comes in. There is the shame that's thrown on us. And so a lot of us kind of crawl back into the hole and just go along with things again. But it's building that desire of like, okay, I know that's part of it, but the shame is what keeps me in line. It's what makes me follow the same path as everybody else, which isn't true for me. And if it's true for you, great, right? But it's like odds are if you're listening to this, you're questioning some things. And and so it's learning to be okay with the shame because it's like if I have a reaction to it, there's some part of me that's locked up about it. And so that actually gives me my next steps. It gives me the area that I need to go into, and I need to approach those vulnerabilities and those insecurities so that I can develop them and bring them along, because it's really just a stuck child. It's a version of us that's stuck in the past that felt like we had to be a certain way in order to get love and acceptance. And so we adapted, but we still kind of froze in that area where our development is kind of lagging behind. We're not able to integrate new information if I'm trying to present an image to everybody that I've got this all figured out, right? You see this commonly like across the board. If you really step back, it's a lot of like, the younger generation. It's like it's very natural to have insecurities at that age, but you're not an expert yet. You're not experienced, but through social media and all this stuff, it's about maintaining an image. It's about putting things out there that you have everything's figured out, even if you haven't learned anything yet, right? And so there's a lot of the faking it going on, and so that's that stands uh, that pushes us back from progress. If I'm pretending my way through life, I'm not actually like learning anything. It's through the vulnerability, through seeking out guidance, finding mentors, people that can teach you. That's what actually allows you to develop those emotionally in those areas, which is that's all this stuff really is. It's emotional maturity we're bringing to something. And then and as we mature those emotions, we develop our mindset that goes hand in hand. You commonly see this with people that struggle with finding a partner too. It's like their dating strategy, they might be into their 30s, but their dating strategy is that of a high schooler or a college kid. They haven't learned from those experiences. They just have all the shame about it where they're not moving forward. They're just trying to pretend like they have it figured out. And the longer you do that, now you just start shutting off that part of your life, because it's just like, well, I don't have it figured out, but so now I'm just going to start blaming everybody else so that I don't have to feel that shame that I have. Okay. So it's the pretending piece is what stands in the way of our development. And so when we're able to drop the mask and admit, hey, like I don't know what I'm doing, I need some help. That's things in today's world. There's plenty of people that can help, right? Like you just search social media, there's experts in every single realm you can imagine. But that's the space of this work is like you can bring whatever you want to me, and we're going to help mature those emotions behind it. We're going to build you up through that process, because it's a safe space. Like this is where you work it out, because the world's less forgiving. If you're just bringing it to the world, you're just going to get nothing but shame thrown on you. It's just going to reflect what you already believe about those situations. But if we get into these spaces where we can really open up, be vulnerable, admit that, hey, I'm lost here, that's how we find ourselves. Is, I have to be lost first in order to truly find myself, because in that being lost phase, I dig deeper. I try to understand myself better. I get more into like, okay, what things can I do to improve this scenario? And you approach that work, and then as you learn that stuff, you start to stabilize and you mature, and then now I've got something I can move forward with.
You think the pretending piece is the same as reality distortion? So, like, I can say more, but as part of the work I do related to the Enneagram, we talk about a portion of that that's called reality distortion. And rather than the word pretending, we use the word faking. So it's faking good and faking bad. And the idea is that it's somebody that refuses to look at themselves and question things because, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or, like, I'm so irreparably broken, why bother? So
Yeah,
it's sort of like two sides. Do you think the pretending is the same as that?
yeah, it's the same. Because you're when we get too externally focused, like, so our ego gets very strong. Our ego is entirely externally focused. So somebody that has a strong ego is really disconnected from what's going on inside. But in reality, external and internal are a reflection of each other. And so if I don't have this data I'm pulling from, I'm trying to manipulate things out here. And so I'm just trying to present the image that I think people want to see. And that's things, people are highly adaptable. They see what's like accepted and loved and like that kind of thing, and they're just trying to align with it, but it doesn't feel right because it's not embodied. They're not actually acting from the place. They're acting from their mind, trying to make things look a certain way rather than just be a certain way. Okay, so it is faking their survival instincts. We A lot of us grew up where we had to learn those skills of like, okay, this is what's accepted here. I need to orient myself to that rather than be who I really am. And so it creates that split. And so the longer I'm in that, I actually think the false reality is my real reality. But if I'm not in tune with myself, I'm not getting the feedback. So I might be trying to present this image, but that's where our gut comes into play. Is if I'm communicating with somebody that's operating from this false self, that's going to feel off to me. Okay, I'm going to be like, yeah, there's something here. And a lot of people, they might try and present an image, but the reality is much different. But they're so oriented to what the image is that they're just totally out of tune with what's actually going on. That's the nature of it. Is if I'm not going inward and reworking these things, I like lose touch with that. And so now it's all about, I become very superficial. I become very externally focused, and in that place, it's just, yeah, it might be just in the people pleasing, or I might just be trying to present this image to people so that they like me. That's where we get lost, is because it's not natural. It's practiced, it's rehearsed, it's something I've had to adapt to. Once we get in tune with our natural state of being, things just kind of flow from that place, and it doesn't take a lot of thought. It doesn't. So an overthinker is going to be somebody that has a lot of internalized shame. They have a lot of parts of themselves that they're rejecting. And so they're thinking and strategizing about everything they're about to do on like how it's going to be received to other people rather than just acting from what's right for them. Okay. And so it creates this split, and you do distort reality. And then you start to, the longer you do it, the more you start to believe the false reality is your actual reality. And then because you're out of tune with the feedback, which is what you feel.
Let's tie these things together a little bit more. How is the how is the getting lost help you come back to that reality so that you don't have to pretend? So that you can let that go?
The getting lost, it's generally some sort of catalyst shows up in your life. Something, it could be a failed relationship, it could be losing a job, could be a loss of a loved one, it could be, something shakes you up where you do start to question, you start to think a little deeper, and you start to feel this bigger pull on you to go rediscover yourself. And we get lost. Well, once again, we're surrendering the ego. The ego is just trying to maintain an image. But if I don't care about the image anymore, now I can just get to what's real. And so as I'm lost, I'm asking the deeper questions. I'm trying to sort through it. I'm trying to get clear on who I am. I'm starting to understand myself at a deeper level. I'm starting to get in tune with what I feel. Because that if something feels off to us, you once we start to develop the awareness, we start to feel more. And then that now I can't go back and do the same things. I can't pretend anymore because it just feels so fake and it's kind of cringy. As we're lost, we're asking the deeper questions, and we're starting to integrate our past a little bit better, where we're starting to see like the role between like how I'm showing up and the results I achieve and things like that. We're bridging the gap of like getting back in tune with reality, and we're letting the false self start to fall away. When we do that, naturally start to figure out what authentic means for me. It's a messy process. I'm gonna try some things. I feel pulled in this direction, so I'm gonna go pursue that. I'm gonna start to take new steps that I wouldn't have taken before. And each time I do that, I'm going to be confronted with more of the ego trying to protect me from things. So that's where I might be hypercritical and beat up on myself. I might start to try and like shut down the steps that I'm taking in order to protect myself, but I just keep going through that. I start to realize that, hey, that's actually just my mind trying to protect me. It's trying to maintain my past, but I don't want that anymore. I'm always choosing growth, and that means I need to move through the discomfort, and I need to find better ways of seeing these situations in a way that's more neutral, less personal. I'm more detached from this identity piece. I'm trying to depersonalize things to allow me to move through this place of like finding myself. The more I come to peace with that, the more I literally can't perform. Okay. Like, because my body just won't allow me to do it. I can't pretend, I can't fake it because it just feels so bad to me. We might try. And once we try, we're just like, yeah, I can't really shake it. I feel like I betrayed myself again. And so each time we do that, we keep recentering on what's authentic, what's real, what's true based on like what I know right now of me, right? You keep going back to your center, because each time you step out of line, you have a bigger reaction to it. It feels really bad. You activate all this shame, and we just keep unpacking and unwinding the shame and to free you up so that you start to embody who you really are. And now I don't really need to pretend. I start to, because a lot of this is like I'm operating to receive validation from other people, but the more I validate myself and the less I care about that, the less I need to adjust and perform for other people. So they all go hand in hand of like, as I'm losing myself, I'm starting to be confronted with the things that made me go off track. As I'm reconciling that, I'm starting to grow into this new version of, I'm starting to get a sense of what that should look like. And then that feels so good to me that I don't want to trade that for the world. Okay. I'm getting closer to the truth, and that's self reinforcing. And it feels much cleaner and easier. And I feel at peace with myself finally. Our thoughts start to settle down where I'm less judgmental. So all these things keep reinforcing that I'm heading in this direction of being in this cleaner place. If I do go into performance, if I do try to fake it, it's just going to feel so bad that I don't want to do it anymore. So it's kind of this self-correction that happens. But like once we do it, now a lot of the overthinking stops, and I just can flow with things. I can just act from my heart. I can be present with stuff. I'm less in my mind trying to calculate things like what's this person going to think of me and like all that stuff. And I start to see every time that happens, that's like an opportunity for me to go deeper, that, okay, like I still have some work to do in this area. I'm not going to go adjust myself, but I need to go into myself and discover what still feels like I need to do that. Okay, so I just keep working those angles. And each time I do that and I come to peace with it, it frees me up where, I can no longer self-sacrifice. I can no longer put myself in that position because it just feels so bad. Okay. And once again, that doesn't mean you don't make sacrifices for other people. It doesn't mean you don't help other people. It means you're more conscious about what that means. If I'm doing things and it has a ton of strings attached to it, if it's like a family member that I truly do want to help, but I need to like think of that on the front ends of like, how do I need to set this up so that there's not all the strings attached to it? How can I help in a way that's authentic, that honors both of us? Okay, you start to think deeper about the commitments you make, and you start to align them in a way that's in integrity with you. Because if there's codependencies going on, if somebody's requiring too much of me and it's at my expense, like I want to try and realign that relationship. And as I do that, I'm starting to sort things out within myself, but like by me showing up differently in relationship to that person, I'm kind of holding this mirror up so that they can develop in the way that they need to as well. Okay, so it helps other people stand on their own 2 feet a little bit better when we stop giving so much, because they want us to give more in the areas that they're weak. But if they start to strengthen those weaknesses, they're going to need less from us. So all these things are kind of self-correcting if we're willing to sit through the discomfort, update relationships, shift how we show up. Now it's like that's holding other people accountable to their own energy and allowing them to face it rather than me just like save them from their insecurities.
If you were to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways from Permission to Get Lost, what would you say?
Oh yeah, so this ability to get lost and stop pretending it's with the goal in mind of like I want to reconnect to myself. Okay, so I have all this programming that supports this way of being, and when that starts to feel really uncomfortable for you, that's where we consider these options of like, yeah, maybe I've just kind of lived by default. Maybe I fell into a lot of things I wasn't fully on board with, and that doesn't feel right to me. So, getting lost is this ability to surrender that and choose something new, choose a new life, choose a new path. And in that process, we have to get comfortable with this idea that yeah, I don't quite know where I'm going right now. I'm not really sure where this is going to lead, but I'm willing to find out. And so it's a journey you take, and that journey does connect you back to yourself, and that makes you starts to create this idea of a more authentic living, which is going to make you feel more at peace with yourself. And it's in that process you're going to be recalibrating a lot of your relationships, and you're going to start to see these different situations differently. I just encourage you to take things to the bottom, and that means that okay, if I'm still not at peace with something, there's still something for me to learn about it. Okay, so as I'm lost, I'm just trying to confront the uncomfortable things within myself And it's just a phase. You're not going to stay lost forever. You get lost in order to find yourself at a deeper level. And so that's the purpose of it, is we're trying to shed the parts of you that aren't true in order to find the real you. And then that once you find the real you, that's what you build your life on. That's what you move forward with, because that's going to serve you on every level in every way, because you no longer are fighting yourself. You're no longer holding all these secret resentments towards all these people in your life. You're able to be self-contained and kind of see where you can help, where you can support, what version of life you actually want to live. And when we're at peace with ourselves, we treat people better. We show up better in our relationships. We're generally more kind, because I'm not harboring all this resentment. It does just benefit everything. It gets us to this place, because hurt people are the ones that hurt people. If I heal my hurts, if I work through those things, and I'm living the life that I would like, odds are is that's going to bear a lot of fruit for everybody. It's actually for a higher level, rather than me just giving out of codependencies or feeling like I have to do all these things. We get in this place of choosing what we do, and that's more intentional. What I choose for myself, like, that's generally what I'm on board with. When people are putting these expectations or placing these things on me, that's generally what I'm fighting against. Okay. So, once we find that center, a lot of good things start to stabilize, and then we start to create this flow that is really beneficial for everyone around us.
This is good. Let's tell everybody the best places to find you and anything you got going on or things you would like people to know about.
If you're curious about this work and want to go deeper, and maybe you want to get lost with me, and I'll help guide you through it, you can schedule a free 30-minute strategy session with me on my website, brandonthielk.com. I just get to know a little bit about you and share how I can help. Also, if you want to register for my newsletter, The Lightning Report, you can do that on my website as well. It's just a weekly update on the business and some insights for the week to take your reflection work deeper. Also, if you want to follow along on YouTube and Instagram at Brandon Thielk, we post out there regularly. Also at bthielk on TikTok. Please like, subscribe, follow. I would love to hear from you, and would love to hear any suggestions you have on any topics or any things you would like me to go deeper on. I'd love to help as much as I can, and yeah, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. If you have any questions that you would like us to answer on the podcast, you can definitely submit those via DM or on any of those channels, comment, anything like that that Brandon just mentioned. And as always, all of the links for all of those things will be in the show notes.
Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you later, Brandon.